Welcome to Night of the Comic. This is the first time, if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, this is the first time we're doing a video version. So it'll be on our Night of the Living podcast YouTube channel, Patreon, and hopefully Jason will be able to share it to his Instagram TV for his Night of the Comic Instagram. And Dave's face, look at that.
Whoa.
That's what
that was.
Look at this face.
He's all face, isn't he?
Mostly face. I'm 90% face.
Oh, you kill me. You kill me plus all those prostitutes.
And one hobo.
And one hobo.
But they don't count.
Not really.
Literally, it takes like 10 of them to equal one normal human.
That's right. They're not real people.
I love the super intimate feel of Jason and him drinking out of his Captain America.
In a tank top, rolled up on his couch.
Yeah, I like that. For the first video one, he's like, I don't want to go down and show you my super awesome comic book collection.
It's called comfort, my friends.
Are you watching TV right now? It looks like I see a glare of a television.
There's a television on. Oh, I'm so sorry. I guess, you know what, let's have Freddy and Dave come over and you can be my new interior designer.
So you can show the listeners your tattoos.
That's weird. No, I'm not going to.
Just pretend the listeners are a pretty girl that you met at a bar and she's like, oh, you like Wolverine?
He's got Kitty Pryde on his forearm and he can make her dance.
My Nightcrawler hangs below my knee. You want to see?
All right, that's a good one.
It looks like they ran out of dark blue ink when they made that. Oh boy. So we're gonna, I guess this is gonna be a little bit of a shorter show than usual because I got to do the day job before a full hour is up. But I did read some comic books. Did you guys read some comic books?
Maybe, but who cares about that? I want to hear about the events that took place at 2 a.m. last night.
I was telling Jason, I woke up at 2 and my tummy hurt. So I did what most people do when their tummy hurts, and I went into the restroom.
Yeah.
And I thought
for a rest.
Yeah, for a rest and read some comic books. And I had to spring from the toilet to see what was the matter, because instead of one thing, it was actually a projectile vomit that came on.
Wow.
And so I sprayed all over my shower curtain, the side of my tub, my wife's squatty potty thing, side of the toilet, the back of the toilet, my beard. And I had drank like a little bit of red wine with dinner, so it all looked like blood.
That's so gross.
It was
so wonderful.
It was awful. And
was it like a food poisoning thing? Because you seemed chipper this morning.
It must have been food that did it. I think we Jason and I have theorized it was the salad I ate, but I'm not sure.
It's got to be the salad.
I made a nice home cooked meal. The one thing that I didn't make was the salad. It was a bag salad. You know.
Oh, that's it right there. Come on now. Mystery solved.
Yeah.
We did it, gang.
I'm a very careful cook, so I don't know how I could have given myself food poisoning, but I may have.
You're watching The Careful Cook with Freddy Morris.
I'm glad this is the first one I'll put up on Instagram, and we're talking about vomiting on top of your shit.
Yeah. Jason's in a spouse abuser. His couch.
I have literally only worn tank tops since we've been doing this at home, and now it's suddenly a thing.
Well, I'm very chilly, so I'm wearing.
So now all you have to have Freddy come over and Dave come over, and you have to design my living room and pick out my wardrobe for the podcast from now on.
I got my
Wow.
Frankenstein hoodie on.
I am being
sensitive.
accosted.
You're very sensitive this morning. This is intense. I don't think anyone said about your interior design.
Yeah, they
You ridicule me because I'm sitting on a couch.
and now he's
I
wiping.
got coffee in my.
Those
I
are
have coffee in
your
my mustache.
actions.
It's like an animal. This is like Tiger King.
Everyone wanted those new episodes of Tiger King. Well, here they are.
You can't just take baby Jasons to malls and let kids play with them. It's immoral.
So what comics did everyone read?
Well, I think the first one I want to tell you guys about is called Beserker Unbound. I don't know if either of you have read this, but it is pretty fantastic. I'm about to send some stuff up to the screen.
Berserker, as in a guy with a giant sword?
As in a barbarian.
Yeah.
Oh, I've heard about this.
Look at him. He's
Justin
in New
talked
York
about this.
City.
Don't you love that?
What's he doing there? It's like a fish out of water.
Yeah, exactly. So he's basically Conan the Barbarian, essentially.
Wait, hold up. I don't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry. That's what I do best. There was a straight to video movie in the early 90s, I believe, probably on Showtime a lot or Cinemax. It starred Malibu from American Gladiators.
Yeah.
And it was this exact story. He was a Conan the Barbarian character, and he blasted into Los Angeles 1991. And he was like this barbarian dude in LA.
Yeah, that's kind of like, wasn't it Hercules Goes Bananas or something with Schwarzenegger too? Basically that.
Hercules Goes to New York.
Oh yeah,
Hercules.
I blended
New York. Is it takes?
I may have blended together Herbie Goes Bananas.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm bananas. This is bananas.
I can't do it when you put me on the spot.
Oh, these your bananas? You eating other people's bananas? So Beserker Unbound, his family's slaughtered by this sorcerer. It's straight up Conan, but he ends up going through this portal that he finds in this cave, and he ends up in this modern time, and he meets this homeless guy who is this really cool character. I chose this because I love the look of this, the art. I think he really captures this nighttime scene really nicely. And
there bitmaps in all the art like this.
That's Mike Diodato.
Yeah, the art throughout this is all like this. It's one trade so far, and it's very fast.
I think he left Savage Avengers to do this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which Conan was a member of that team.
That makes sense. This is great. This is him
I love that guy.
To his life with his family and everything, and what he was in his own home, his old home world. But he pairs up with this homeless character who kind of takes him under his wing, and they end up like it's interesting because it's not like he can magically just speak the same language. So it's a lot of them trying to figure out what each other is saying. He takes him to a food bank and stuff, and it's a lot of these scenarios where he's just kind of thrown into another survival situation, and then the evil wizard follows him through the portal, and the shit hits the fan. There's some awesome battle scenes in it. Highly recommend. I got to the end of it, and I was like, I just was dying to start the next one, and the only one I could get at the library so far is the first one. But
yeah, it just started not that long ago. I'm surprised it's even in a trade yet.
Yeah, that's what's great about Hoopla is they get things really, really early. Certain ones that they choose to feature, they'll have them pretty shortly after you can get them in print. if not concurrently. But that's Beserker Unbound by Jeff Lemire and Mike Deodato Jr.
Did
Really?
you think
Jeff
2
Lemire
years
did that?
ago you would ever say a sentence that sounded like the best thing about hoopla?
The best thing about Hoopla is all the jazz.
I had no clue Jeff Lemire did that. Now I really want to read it.
Yeah, very, very good. And it's not like super dialogue heavy or anything. It's the art is what carries it, and which I know makes Dave happy.
Yeah, I like the sound of that.
I like pictures.
I like pictures. I don't like those words all the time.
Do you guys want to talk about something? I have other stuff, but I didn't know.
Well, we didn't do homework like you did. At least I did, and I don't have fucking pictures in a slideshow and
Yeah, no, he's just dropping this on us.
Microsoft Office presentation to give to everyone.
Here's me, and this is my vacation photos, and this is me in Gatlinburg, and can't believe the size of that corn dog.
You're missing like swipes and dissolves and like rotating logos. And
yeah.
I'll have that next week.
I read the More Planet of the Apes comics.
Oh yeah.
In fact, Dave, I read Ursus.
I know. Let's hear it.
It was good. That's it.
All right, fair enough.
No,
I heard that you said that it was your favorite Planet of the Apes comic book you've ever read.
Oh, easily so far.
Yeah.
I did start the one that you read last time, Freddy.
Yeah.
I can't remember who wrote that one, but no, that one's starting off really good. And I know I've started it before and just kind of trailed off because, again, I have the attention span of like a goldfish.
I do too. I have the same problem.
But no, the Ursus one, which was, I guess it actually was a mini series. I thought it was like just made for this book, but it actually was a mini series that was collected. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it would be great for people that don't know Planet of the Apes comics because it's so heavy.
Yeah.
In its lore. Like, I will give it. It's like intermingling scenes from the original movies, dialogue perfect.
Yeah.
And then showing what's going on behind the scenes, but not to get. Yep, that's the one right there. Look at that. Yeah, again, Freddy kind of showing us up here, but whatever.
I'm just supporting you.
I don't want to make it sound like a criticism, but it was a somewhat expected. I kind of knew what to expect going into it. They're going to show like a softer side of General Ursus, or at least why he's so dang angry.
Well, I mean, that's the point of the book.
But they did do a very good job of it, and it is one of those things. If you know the original movies, it's damn near essential reading because they show you the past history with him and Dr. Zaius. It just makes things even make a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
Did you read? Did you start
it,
Dave?
I did. It's the only thing I've read since the last time.
So you read it too?
Yeah, it's the only thing I've read since the last time we've talked.
The story of him and Dr. Zaius in the past, I thought was friggin' awesome.
You bring up a good point that's only like igniting my brain right now. And it's funny because we're all used to mythology and lore and the giant mythology of all the characters that we adore and love in comic books and film and all that stuff. And all too often, maybe I'll use the prequels as an example, the Star Wars prequels. A filmmaker or a creator will give a reason or an explanation or a backstory as to why something once happened that we've all been in love with. And we kind of pick it apart and take what we will, it meets our satisfaction, but like 9 times out of 10, we're not totally satisfied with the result. Do you get where I'm going?
Yeah.
And the weird thing that with this comic is that I take it completely as face value. And you saying that this is essential reading for a Planet of the Apes fan, like this is the companion piece to the first film, like I completely agree.
Yeah.
Like I would even dare say, like if the right people were paying attention, they could make a legit original, Planet of the Apes prequel, sequel
Oh
movie,
man, that would be
and make a
so
retro
awesome.
film, and they could make a fucking movie out of this comic, and it would be totally rad.
It touches on there's a book that, again, now I'm being put on the spot. I just remembered there's a book called Conspiracy of the Planet of the Apes.
Mm-hmm.
That's like graphic. I think, God damn it, I think IDW put it out, but it's not like a graphic novel. It's like an illustrated novel.
Okay.
Not like every 10 pages you get like a nice painted picture.
Yeah.
But that book was made to intermingle. It's almost doing the same exact thing. It's showing you what's going on behind the scenes. So that was a great book. But they touch on some stuff like Zaius knowing about Landon, because that's always one of the questions in the original, where it's like there was another, when they scooped his brain out.
Right. And they always they allude to it. They allude to it in the first movie. At least definitely Zaius knew about him, and that's why he lobotomized him right away or whatever. They didn't let him get that far. But yeah.
Well, it's like one of the little subplots in this that I appreciated was like the basically like the gossip of a talking human getting around Ape City.
Yeah. Yeah. So fun.
Yeah, it's neat. Always neat.
The artwork in this I loved.
The artwork is great. Again, it's like, often with these books, like there's something that seems to always fall short. And neither the writing nor the art fell short. And like,
no,
I find myself again, repeatedly, just like slightly dissatisfied with one element in a comic book nowadays. And this book, it did everything I wanted it to do, which was just really refreshing and fun.
Well, it's, again, to reinforce, I didn't want it to sound like a criticism, but when you watch the original movies, especially Beneath the Planet of the Apes, General Ursus is a one-note character. I'm pissed off, and I hate humans, and that's that. He even comes across as kind of dumb.
Yeah.
But this gives reason to everything.
Right.
And even the very end of Beneath the Planet of the Apes, when he's, shooting an atomic bomb with the machine gun.
Yeah.
It gives that scene more credit.
Yeah. In the original films, do you think that he is intentionally kind of a one-sided, one-dimensional character just because it is a metaphor for racism, right? So,
sure.
Like, he needs to come off as dumb, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm playing devil's advocate.
No, you're right.
Then here they are trying to justify racism in a way in this book, or at least try and show, maybe not justify, but like show his fucked up perspective, right?
It's always more interesting when you have that.
They did a good job of that in this.
Yeah.
Dave, I guess that was the only thing you read.
Yeah, sorry.
That's quite all right. I have a slight confession to make. So sometimes when we record this podcast, or since we've been doing it in quarantine, when I sit in my comic room, I find myself going through boxes of comics.
Naked.
Well, that's the only way to go into my comic room.
Uh-huh.
So that you are one with them.
All ye who enter here shall derobe. Is that what it says on the door?
It actually does, yes. But I find I start going through random boxes and I find all these books and it's like, I bought that years ago and I've never read it.
Mm.
I picked out a random book last week. It was Eclipso, The Darkness Within. Remember that book, Dave, from the 90s?
The Darkness, yeah, sure. Yeah.
No, Eclipso.
No, Eclipso, no.
The one that has it was like the big selling point was that had like a hard plastic diamond on the cover.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
This one.
That's
Wow.
so great. I love
That's my
it.
new face.
Oh, it's beautiful. I gotta find that. I should go get that. Are
Oh,
those expensive?
this is in every dollar bin.
Is it okay?
Yeah. Because like it was like sitting there thinking about it. I remember seeing this in dollar bins back in the 90s.
Being like, what? I have 57 copies of these. Can't be in the
Well,
dollar
it's
bin.
like it was DC trying to make Eclipso such a random, obscure character at the time. They were trying to make him into like,
I've
because
never heard
that's
of
been
the
like
character.
the big bad guy. Yeah, it's been like the dark characters, spawns, and all that were popping up.
Bad guys were good guys,
Yep.
which
And
is
I
fun.
remember this.
That should be a whole topic for the show someday.
Yeah.
We
Done.
could do like a whole bad guys are good guys, like Moon Knight and Judge Dredd. And
Well, I mean, not to get on that topic right away, but Marvel was the worst at that in the 90s. They made Magneto a good guy. They made Sabretooth join the X-Men. They made Venom a good guy.
Some of that's carried
Sure.
over into the movies too, though, a little bit.
But that wasn't,
Magneto.
I would say, with the exception of Magneto, that wasn't their. The character wasn't introduced that way, like this protagonist antagonist kind of character. Like anyone, you can change any character and like have them have an arc or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm talking about characters that from like the start of the race have been a protagonist antagonist type character, like Spawn.
Yeah.
And I think that Magneto, but that again, like I'm gonna get on my rant about X-Men and how beautiful it is. There was like a loosely defined good and bad, you know, and that was what was always so fucking awesome about the X-Men. You know, like I've said it before, my introduction to the X-Men was they're bad guys. You know, they're wanted by the U.S. government, but they do good things. They just do it however they want. And I was like, holy fuck. So they break the law to do good things. And like this dude, like he was like 16 and I was like 8 and he was like, yeah. I'm like, whoa, you know? So as far as like Magneto's concerned, like he's always vacillated. He's always been like, you know, somewhere in between. And that's what I love about Magneto. He can be whatever the fuck he wants. And the Bacalo Bendis run, I've championed it before in the past, but if you haven't read it, read it, because like to me, like that like little snippet.
What happens in it? Which one? Like what's the main part?
The whole run of Bacalo and Bendis and Magneto and Cyclops, you know, being.
Oh, okay, yeah. This whole Cyclops was the right thing.
Yeah. That whole run, I fucking love it because it felt like, you know, I was reading X-Men from like the late 80s again, because they were like they were all wanted. Cyclops was a pseudo bad guy who may or may not have killed Professor Xavier. Magneto was running shit, you know, like he was like the leader of the X-Men, which was just so like refreshing and fun. But yeah, that's
no, that was, I like that. I regret not getting in on that when it was happening.
Yeah, you should. You should.
The whole Cyclops was right thing.
You should get in on it.
Yeah, I'm sure you can get a trade of some kind and read it, because you should. And the art, you can't get any better than the art. I think Chris Bacalo is one of the greatest.
There was a
talented human beings on Earth.
I think it spun out of that. Sometimes the X-Men timeline gets a bit hazy to me because I didn't keep up on it, but there was a Magneto run from 2014, I think.
Yeah.
It's somewhat current, somewhat modern, but dude, you need to read that.
Okay.
It's Magneto who's like, he's lost like a lot of his power. He's very limited in his power now.
Yeah.
But it's basically him going around as like a Punisher, basically.
That's awesome.
Only like having to like fight dudes with like a paper clip because that's all he can move now.
Yeah, that's awesome. and you know, like again, like I think it's weird. Bacalo, like I don't feel like he's championed. He's a huge artist, right? Like he's a household comic book name. But I feel like
think he's right there teetering on the line.
Yeah, I feel like people just don't celebrate him as much as they should. You know, I mean, I know that I first fell onto his artwork way back in the day with the Sandman, the Death books.
Oh, those are so good.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was his first work,
I
or at
think
least it was definitely my introduction.
I
And
think
and then his work worked so well with like dark and spooky and like, you know, like this little goth girl, like it was as good as it gets.
he was the artist on the original Generation X.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, he was, because I never read Generation X, but he did the Age of Apocalypse mini called Generation Next.
Mm,
And I only bought that because Colossus was the main star of it. And I
nice, yeah.
still am a huge Colossus nut, but the way he drew Colossus in those books
Oh my God. Yeah,
was one of the coolest depictions of him.
yeah, yeah.
Is
He's
this
great.
cover, is this correct?
It looks like it.
Yeah.
I think that was part of it.
Yeah.
What Dave's talking about is right after the Avengers versus X-Men storyline.
Yeah.
It ended with, again, it's not really a spoiler, it's a pretty major part of Marvel history, when Cyclops is possessed by the Phoenix Force and ends up killing Professor X, but not intentionally.
Yeah. And the Avengers want, you know, to arrest the X-Men, which is great.
Which
Like
would a
that's as
great,
good as it
yeah,
gets.
a lot of people shit on that. Even to go back a little bit on the Avengers versus X-Men story, a lot of people shit on that. I had fun with it.
Yeah, I think that's
I'm a sucker for superheroes fighting each other.
yeah, that's comics. That's fun.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of
What
that.
was the
That was
But it's weird. Like it also gets. Oh, sorry. It's
Oh,
there's
no.
also a danger zone of it too. You know, like it's as far as like my son is concerned. Like, you know, he's young, he's impressionable, and he sees all these movies where like, you know, Avengers,
Civil
Civil
War?
War or whatever, right? And he's like, well, aren't they both good guys? And why are good guys fight? You know, like I hate to sound prudish and just very parental, but like also there needs to be a here I was as a grown up, like, you know, saying how great this vacillating between good and evil is, but when it comes to like protecting my kids' ideals, I don't want. I want to clearly define good and bad, and I don't
Yeah.
want
What it makes
Iron
the
Man
job
and
harder.
Captain America to have to fight each other in front of my son.
Yeah.
That's weird. That's weird. Sorry.
No, I get it. I see his perspective, because when like I was saying
Well, of
before,
course.
first time I saw Daredevil and Spider-Man tangling up, you know, it took me a while to understand, you know,
Yeah.
that they're not one
Well,
of
it's the
them is not the bad
classic.
guy.
It's the
Yeah.
classic, somewhat trope of, now it's a little bit different, but with yours, Freddy, it's the classic trope of the two heroes bump into each other, so naturally they have to fight
Yeah.
until they decide, like, oh wait, we have a greater evil to take down.
And a lot
Yeah.
of times it's just because they
Whereas
yeah.
I think Dave's is, it's like there was a trend of, like, breaking up the X-Men and the Avengers and having huge internal conflicts.
And it's too
Yeah.
much for a kid to really wrap their head around, I guess is what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
Hey, you know, sometimes even friends fight. It just so happens that these friends can blow up cities.
Yeah.
And you know, I guess that's a good thing. Like I like that because it shows the complexity of any foundation or society. Like, you know, any kind of institution is the right word, right? The institution of superheroisms. There are conflicts and there is politics, and people get upset about the way one group is doing something, and they clash heads. And I think that's a great plot point. But ultimately more adult, I guess.
I've said this rant on this podcast before. The original, like, Dark Knight Returns, when Superman first fought Batman, that was impactful because you had decades worth of stories before that, and it was like, Jesus Christ, what the hell could possibly happen?
Yeah.
Let's make these two fight.
And it wasn't happening every week, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, it was unique.
Yeah. It was an event. It was like big. Yeah. Which kind of like gets us into the subject of like events, you know, like super events happening, like major like events happening in comic books. And now like, you know, it's almost like wrestling where, you know, the WWE schedules a pay-per-view. What is it? Two a season or something like that, you know? So there's like the whole
know that the
storyline of
WWE had
wrestling,
seasons.
the whole storyline of wrestling is built up on the foundations of pay-per-views and what leads up to each pay-per-view and what the aftermath of each pay-per-view and how they like,
Sure.
you know, bridge in between. And in wrestling, I get it, you know, it's become a foundation of storytelling. But, you know, I think that in comics, like the crossover major event fatigue is a real thing. Like it gets to the point, like I forget which one it was. Maybe it was the last Secret Wars round, you know, and that's what 3 years ago now. But like I had to buy like 26 comics one month just to get the complete story of Secret Wars that month. And it was like bonkers.
My version of that is one, yes, you are correct. The amount of tie-ins that they do now is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And, you know, Justin and I have talked about this. It's one of the things that's killing the comic industry, in my opinion. Why would anyone? It was the last big one they did, the War of the Realms.
Yeah.
I think it was last summer.
Yeah.
And like Justin and I were so excited for that. It was the payoff of Jason Aaron's Thor run, which is one of the best runs of all time.
Right.
But then you calculated it, and 1 month it would have cost someone $250 to buy all the tie-ins.
Yep.
Even above and beyond the cost of it, I feel like as a reader, sometimes it's just they're doing it to do it, and the stories suffer.
Oh yeah.
You know, so like even if I can go get them for free from the library, it's still where I'm like, I get to the point where I'm like, just tell me a story. Don't
That's a perfect example, the War of Realms, because like they do this new thing where they will, if you're just reading the mini-series or the event, there will be major points where it's like, wait, when did that happen? And it'll be like, oh, you have to go read this other 8-issue event.
Yeah.
Like, for my example is Daredevil. They made Daredevil the Hemdell, like the overseer of the entire, and it was like, when the hell did this happen? Oh, it happened over in this other mini.
Oh, you didn't get it? You should have. You know, it's just like so like condescending. But yeah, it would like to go with what Freddy was just saying. The beyond the monetary, you know, financial, like it's fatigue is a real thing. Like I get it in wrestling and I get it in comics, and I literally get fatigued by running around having to follow all these different plot points. And I think that for someone who's going to jump in, and it's such a, both of them they mirror each other. They're so inclusive, you know, like as far as the storyline, like it's hard for anyone to jump into comics. It's hard for anyone to jump into wrestling. And by making these stories infinitely more complex and expansive, they're narrowing that doorway for people to get into the industry, you know. They should, like Freddy said, make the stories better, simplify them, make them more like concentrated, right? Like bigger is not, expansive is not always better, right?
But you know what that is, Dave, at a smaller scale? That is comic book companies realizing you're never going to get Joe Blow off the street to come into a comic shop. Yeah. So that's balanced that out by making the actual loyal comic book readers buy a shit ton of books.
Right. Yep. I think you're absolutely right. You nailed it on the head.
But
ultimately, I get tired of it. This is what I was trying to say. It becomes a job for me to become a comic book fan or a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I'll blink my eyes and realize like that I'm working. And I'm not even like watching wrestling because I want to. I'm watching wrestling because I'm required to. And I'm buying like extra issues because I'm required to. And then as soon as I notice that, I'm just like, what the fuck? This is bullshit. And I just want to abandon it all together. And that's a horrible feeling. And they shouldn't.
Well, yeah. You are literally saying the exact conversation Justin and I have. I wish he was here, but I don't want to speak for him, but he said that exact thing. His pull list was so big because he's reading these characters that he loves. It may not necessarily be a storyline, but I've cut my pull list down to 4 or 5 books where it's like I can't keep up with the Marvel universe completely anymore. Time and money.
Yeah.
Ridiculous, where it's like I'm just going to buy the titles I want.
Yeah. And it feels like a job, and it's like, oh, I just got to get through these 3 issues to read on my stack, and then I'll get to this one and that one. It's not like, oh, I can't wait to read this. It's like, oh, I have to get through these.
It's no way to live. No way to.
It's no way to live. It's no way to live.
Well, now I'm finding the opposite. Yeah. I don't know how we're doing with time, but
we got about 10 minutes left. I was just about to say.
I'm finding the opposite now with the whole quarantine thing going on. I was only able to get to the comic shop once during this. My guy did like a little one-on-one shopping type thing. Wink, wink. Now I'm finding myself like absolutely craving comics, but maybe it's more of like a mindset of because I know I can't just go to the comic shop and get them.
Maybe you're just craving that wink, wink that he gave you.
When you got there, did you have a little table set up with like a candle in the middle of it?
I've been waiting for you, Jason.
There was
a whole cutout.
Playing violin by the table.
This is just one-on-one.
We were both reaching for a copy of Moon Knight and our hands touched.
Tale as old as time. So, next time we're going to talk about artists that draw rain like cum.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Mommy, these windows are so cunning.
What's that from, Freddy?
It's actually from so far it's a very good comic.
Called Cummy Windows.
Cummy Windows. I think it's called The Once and Future King, maybe. I'm still reading it, but I think I'll talk about it next time. But it's about a group of essentially white supremacists that
come on Windows.
They come on Windows. No, it involves like archaeology and them finding this relic and trying to take England back minority. It's tied into Brexit. Yeah. It's them. It's like white people trying to reclaim their country. So it's like a metaphor for Brexit, I think. But it's like
that's like a real thing that Hitler did though too. That was like the premise of Indiana Jones and all that.
Right. Yeah. So it's kind of like a modern version of that.
Yeah.
But it has cummy windows in it.
Cummy windows.
Yeah. Cummy in my window. Melissa Etheridge.
Yeah. I got the reference.
Yeah. Do you guys have a favorite Melissa Etheridge song? Does anyone ever say that out loud?
Yeah. I haven't listened to Melissa Etheridge since she was on the radio on a reg.
Really?
Like, not someone I think about normally until Cummy Windows.
Yeah, until Cummy Windows.
It's just not on my radar anymore. Yeah. Yeah. You guys, I guess I should go do my day job. So I'm not too late to that. What about you guys? You got a big day planned?
I got a lot of drawing to do. A lot of drawing.
Just like Simon.
Yeah.
I also have to get ready for work.
Yeah. So you got to change into a different.
No, I'm wearing this.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for doing this again. It's always a pleasure. I love it. Makes me happy. Dave clearly loves it.
I love it.
And we'll do this again this week. We're talking about doing a bunch of extra stuff, so keep your ears and eyes peeled.
You hear it.